Well, your father definitely had quite the legacy in the business, really very inspiring, influential, paved the way for so many people. You mentioned Bret, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, and just so many other people, especially with the modern era. Bryan Danielson is one, Rey Mysterio, Ricochet, like all these high-flying guys. Really, it all started with him. He was like one of the first to ever do it. What was it about pro wrestling for your dad that made him go, man, I could do this?
Well, my dad always played sports in school, and he didn't do well in core subjects, but he always excelled in sports. So everything he did, he excelled in. And gymnastics was something that he actually did as a young child. So I think that that just like transferred over really well. And also, we came from a boxing family. My dad came from a long line of bare knuckle boxers. So his father was trying to get him into boxing, and then he discovered pro wrestling and was like, no, dad, like I want to do this. So I think it was just a really nice transition of like boxing and gymnastics.
And there's a lot of similarities with boxing, but with wrestling, it's very combat, more physicality. And
Yeah,
so you
more
see
of the
nowadays.
yeah, like the mat work. He was, he started with catch wrestling and in England, and yeah, just the storytelling. I think wrestling has more of that than like boxing does, right? So I think that was part of the draw for him.
And back then, you had the territories. Before you had like the big companies, you had so many different territories across the world, and England had a really big territory at that time too.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what can you tell me when you had conversations with him about his first trainer getting started in the business? Did you ever talk to him about that?
Not really. I've just kind of read it in his book. I know about, yeah, Ted Bentley and how they met and all that. So my dad and I reconnected. He had had some strokes. So by the time we reconnected, he was a man of very little words. So unfortunately, I didn't get like all those stories, but I'm fortunate enough that it is in his book, and lots of people share what they know. So I would love to see a biography. That's what we're missing, just to piece everything together.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a legacy over time. And he was trained by Stu Hart eventually too. The Stampede wrestling territory was huge in Canada.
Yes.
I mean, it's tough, you know. You talk about, tough as nails Stu Hart was. He really made sure his guys knew the business and
Yeah.
really made sure that the Dynamite Kid was able to be set up for success.
Yes, I think maybe at first he was a little unsure of my father because of his size. He came over, he was so young, so small. But as soon as he saw his work ability and his work ethic, he was like, okay, now we're talking. Let's see where this can go. And Stu was really, really fond of my father. So we we were not Hart family by blood, but we were welcomed into the family just as anyone else, because of that bond that they shared, and my mom too with the Hart family.
Did you ever get to meet Stu Hart?
Yeah, all the time. We were there every Sunday night. Well, pretty much every Sunday. They had big family dinners, especially when the wrestlers were like back home from off the road. We were always up there Sunday nights. So I have lots of memories with all the cousins. And like I said, Helen Hart, she had a book with all her grandchildren's names in it because it was such a large family. She was so, as all grandmothers are, they're so proud of like how many grandchildren they have. They're like, oh, I have
Hmm.
40, or I actually don't know the exact number, but she has a book with all her grandchildren's names in it, and me and my siblings are in there as well. So we're the only ones that actually aren't Hart blood, but we're written down in there because we were just raised that way. My mom's sister married Bret Hart, is how I'm related to the family. So I'm only blood related to Bret's kids through my aunt's blood, right? But we were raised like part of the family, so we're no different.
What was it like being around Bret Hart, especially back then? Because he's just a legend in his own right.
I was such a shy child, and I don't know if that's to some people that's hard to believe. I don't know if it's just because I was raised with so many big men around me, like constantly, and I'm just this little timid girl, and I'm like, oh my God, I'd always hide behind my mom's leg, and she'd be introducing me to wrestlers. I'm like, I'd poke out and be like, hi, and then I'd go back behind her leg. So I think growing up, I was always super shy with Brett, even and because they were always on the road. So it's not like I got this like a ton of quality time with him. But I remember when he had his stroke, I wrote him this like beautiful letter and he was in the hospital. And I'm like, because I was always so shy and I'm like, I've never told you, but like I love you and you're the best uncle. And so that was me kind of being like, I wish I wasn't so shy my whole life and I wish I told you I loved you, but like this is how I feel about you.
It's amazing to see that the tag team wrestling, especially back in the 80s, was huge. You had the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs with Davey Boy and your dad. You had the Killer Bees. All these different teams really like wanted to strive to be the best. And for a guy that was just 225, close to 230, entering the WWE, the land of the giants like Andre, Hogan, Macho Man. It was hard, I imagine, for a small guy to really break in the business, especially with a big company like WWE.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's why, he felt he had to do steroids. And a lot of the wrestlers did at that time. But regardless of his size, I think he really made a mark for himself, really made a name for himself, and made like such a difference in the industry today, right?
Hmm.
Um, Showing that little guys can do it. And if you look back at the matches even before steroids, like he was incredible when he first started out in England, even just bouncing around the ring like a ping pong ball. And the way he'd bounce off his head, I'm like, yeah, like where does this guy learn this stuff?
When you go back and watch some of his old matches, are there any that stick out to you? Like, I love this. I love this. I think this is a beautiful work of art almost.
Work of art, I mean, I have a hard time answering that question just because I'm really weird with even bands, for example. Like, I'm huge into music. I have singers who are my favorite singers, but their band actually isn't my favorite band.
Hmm.
So to say like this is my favorite match because of this, I can't pinpoint it because I like different aspects of all different matches. But work of art absolutely is like Tiger Mask and my father. Just any clip you see of them it's breathtaking and you can't take your eyes off it.
Yeah, they just put on so many great clinics. Who could forget like the matches they had in Japan and all around the world? And then of course you had, your uncle uh Bret wrestling the Dynamite Kid. I mean,
Love
that was a
any of the matches, yeah, the like Hart Foundation versus Bulldogs. I absolutely love that too because it's like they're all family members and they're all brothers and brother-in-laws and they train together and it's just so the chemistry is just crazy.
what was Davy Boy like to be around?
He was super funny. He was like the big goofy, everyone's favorite uncle type. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't get a lot of time with him either because gosh, they were on the road so much.
Yeah.
And they lived in Florida half the time. So for most of my childhood, they were in Florida. But yeah, he was definitely the big, goofy, fun uncle. In his later years that I can remember when he was in Calgary, he had a big motorcycle. So the kids would love to like go on the back and take a little ride with Uncle around Stu Hart's house. And yeah, he's just this big, badass, goofy uncle.